We've all been told a billion times that dieting leads to binge eating, but what's the answer? Like, are we meant to just stop dieting? And if we do that, then what? The idea of just putting a stop to dieting brings up a ton of fear in a lot of people. And I can understand why, because there is so much uncertainty around the idea of not dieting. Like, if we're dieting, if we're taking steps to control things and manage things, then hopefully we have at least some idea where we're going or what the future looks like. But if we stop dieting, then who knows? So that's what we're talking about today. The fear that often comes up around the idea of putting an end to dieting, and what that was like for myself when I first decided to step away from keto and intermittent fasting and paleo and all the things that I was doing. My name's Marcus, and here at Strong Not Starving, we help people create fulfilling relationships with food and exercise. So this question, what will happen if I stop dieting? What will happen when I no longer have the diet fairy riding my ass saying, you shouldn't eat that? What will happen if I'm not dieting and every time I go to fill up my car, I go to pay for my fuel and have to walk past a literal wall of chocolate in the service station? If I'm not dieting, what's stopping me just grabbing everything? Without the limits of restriction, what will happen? There is so much fear around this. And the really difficult thing here is that so many people have had such terrible experiences of the dieting and not dieting roller coaster that there's some pretty common ideas about what happens when we stop dieting. You don't need to go far online to find stories of people saying, I gained this much when I stopped dieting, or this is what happened to me. But I've been listening to people talk about their experiences of dieting and not dieting for a lot of years now, since probably around 1672. And there is always a common thread. The story usually goes some kind of really strict dieting and shame and guilt, followed by periods of chaos. There is often a total absence of sensible guidance and support. The dieting is often extreme, both physically and emotionally, and also the chaos after dieting is extreme. And when we are in that position of dieting and experiencing fear around the idea of letting go of control, I actually dodged that bullet, and it was completely by accident. And how that happened, how I managed to step away from dieting without this overwhelming fear around what will become of me, a big part of why that happened is that I wasn't pressured by any intense anti-diet cult rhetoric. I wasn't put in a position where I felt like I had to adhere to any kind of anti-diet or health at every size idealism. Now, before I go a single step further, when you look at the original philosophies of causes like anti-diet and health at every size, the original cause and the original foundational messages are fantastic. What those things have become, especially through social media, is an absolute clusterfuck. And in a big way, the pop culture version of anti-diet and health at every size contributes to this all or nothing back and forwards between hardcore dieting or hardcore not dieting. And I was fortunate enough not to have that. This is one of the reasons I work so hard to give people support in a way that allows for autonomy. Because when I was struggling, my first steps, finding my way out of that struggle, just looked like connecting with someone who'd been through some of the same things as me and was willing to sit down and have a chat. They shared a bunch of my values in regards to wanting to be fit and healthy, and they didn't come at me with a whole lot of crap about this is how you should think and this is how you should feel and this is exactly what you should do. They simply listened to what I was telling them about what I was experiencing and the frustrations and the pain that I was going through with dieting and training and pain and fluctuating energy levels and, mental cycles around food. And they just told me, mate, probably take it easy on the dieting, hey. And it was just such a normal conversation, again, from someone who shared my values around wanting to be fit and healthy. I was basically told, keep doing all the great work that you're doing with including your protein and vegetables and all that kind of stuff, but how about eating carbs and having a burger without calling it a cheat day? You'll be okay. And that was my beginning. And sure, there was more work to be done along that path as I traveled further, but I was given space to figure out my own future. And there wasn't much of a reason for me to be scared of doing something different or maybe stepping away from strict dieting, because that wasn't framed as this big, scary commitment. I wasn't signing my name in blood in front of a group of people that were telling me I had to think what they think and do what they do. I was able to stay focused on what I needed and what was working and what wasn't working in the present moment, without getting ahead of myself and without diving into any spiral of fear and anxiety around what was going to happen to me or what I was destined for. There was no predetermined destination. It was just a process of creating a new way to live. And this is what I think is one of the biggest fucking issues with a lot of, let's call them anti-diet groups out there. They create this picture and this expectation of what your future needs to look like if you join them or if you do this thing. And it pains me to say it, but in so many ways, different groups that might associate with anti-diet have become just as rigid and just as judgmental and just as all or nothing as the diet groups, like the weight loss and make your body look this way diet groups that they claim to oppose. And I was fortunate enough to be part of none of that. I was free to explore what my future could look like and what I could create for myself, while having the support of someone who understood the journey and could offer some valuable insights if I needed it. The person who helped me do this at the very start was not invested in having their needs and beliefs validated by having me copy them. They didn't care what approach I used, as long as I ended up happier. And this is why Strong Not Starving doesn't have rules. We don't have a set of 10 commandments here. This is why. There are really just 3 key principles. Number 1, learn to identify what you need with courage and awareness, because identifying our own needs and what we really want, sometimes that requires some courage. Number 2, get ahead of meeting those needs so we don't wait until we're starving, physically, mentally, or emotionally. And 3, focus on what you can do with your body rather than what shape you want to beat it into. And if you're feeling really focused on your body shape right now, there might be a little voice in your head saying something like, it doesn't matter what my body can do if it doesn't look the way I want it to. And I get it. But the dieting and the self-criticism and the food obsession, I don't know if you'd be here right now listening to this if that whole thing was working out for you. And in my own journey, because I was given so much autonomy and because I didn't feel pressure to adhere to other people's expectations, I was free to ask that question, how's this working out for me, at any time, and actually get pretty honest answers. Without the pressure to be a certain way, feel a certain way, think a certain way, we can ask that question and have pretty decent awareness around it, rather than feel boxed in or stressed or under pressure to be a certain way. That autonomy gave me the confidence to move forward with 2 very specific things. I wasn't going to retreat into any old mindset that made my life miserable, and that the journey would not be over until I created what I was looking for. Notice I didn't say find what I was looking for. I said create what I was looking for. Personally, I don't actually believe in counting on finding what we need ready-made. Sometimes it happens and that's great, but more often than not, in my experience at least, if I've wanted something or I've needed something, I've had to create it. It's easy to think, oh, that sounds like a lot of work, but it's also very liberating. And in my experience, listening to people tell stories about joining all-in intuitive eating groups or anything like that, I've heard just as many horror stories and examples of all or nothing thinking as I have from people who spent years in Weight Watchers. From what I've seen, from what I've experienced, I strongly suspect a lot of the fear around letting go of dieting comes from a lot of preconceived ideas around what that has to look like. And there are a lot of people out there who, in the name of making themselves feel better about their journey and what that looks like for them, need other people to have the same experience. It's tragic. Diet cults used to mean weight loss, but now it's just any group of people aggressively pushing a very rigid and specific set of ideas and philosophies around food or how you should feel about your body. So when it came to letting go of dieting, sure, I had some concerns. Like I was stepping into some unknown territory, but because of the kind of support I received, non-judgmental, retaining my autonomy, able to ask for advice or insight if I needed it from somebody who shared a lot of my values around being physically healthy and not coming at me with some kind of fight the power anti-diet crusade, all of that made it so much easier on me because it gave me the freedom to discover what the way forward could look like if I just started treating myself a little bit better. And this is what we cover in my coaching program and in the Strong Not Starving community. How to actually do all this, how to take the principles and ideas from this channel and turn them into actionable practices. Like, what does food actually look like for you if you want to be healthy but no longer want to be dieting? How do we actually practice the mindset work and making the shift from obsession and stress and self-criticism into more ease and autonomy? And what's it like to move your body like an athlete rather than a never-ending weight loss project? What's it like to go out to dinner and have a good time without stressing about it, or needing to compensate for your food choices the next day, or feeling guilty, or going through any of the mental spirals around what am I going to order? So if you'd like to book a call to talk about your personal journey, there is a link in the episode description. And remember, it's not weird to have concerns if you're trying something new. But if you talk to me and it turns out that the Strong Not Starving approach is a good fit for you, this is about me supporting you in creating something that's yours. So thanks for tuning in this week. My name's Marcus. Remember, links to book a call with me to talk about either one-to-one coaching or the Strong Not Starving community are in the episode description. I'll see you next time.